Our first topic for the podcast is My Chemical Romance. 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge celebrates 20 years today. We want to know: is this album punk rock at all? Is this band punk rock at all? My Chemical Romance did 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. This was their second record, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. They were, when this one came out, that song Helena was on here, and there was 2 big songs on this album.
I'm Not Okay are the 2
and I'm
ones.
Not Okay.
Yeah.
And at this time, I was working at Hot Topic, so I was around this music. I was a manager at a Hot Topic, and I ended up staying there for quite some time and working at 2 locations. So I was around MCR, Harry Potter, all that stuff was big back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was around this music. I just didn't really listen to it. I was still more of a punk rocker. I was into the more punk rock side of hardcore music at this point. So I really looked at this stuff as kind of lame, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Later in life, I rediscovered some of their songs, mostly the stuff on the Black Parade, honestly. And I thought, man, I wonder why I disliked this so much. Like, what was my beef? So I started listening to it. And then, as you know, a family man with the kids and stuff, I opened a record store and I started bringing their records into my shop because I bought a used copy from somebody in a collection once, and it sold like immediately. And I was like, you know what? I need to pay more attention to this. And so I'm saying all that to say that that's the reason for my curiosity with this band. It isn't something I would normally be that interested in. So our first topic for the podcast is My Chemical Romance. 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge celebrates 20 years today. We want to know: is this album punk rock at all? Is this band punk rock at all? Okay, so what is your natural, like, knee-jerk reaction to that question when I say that out loud?
Well, they come from punk rock. They come from punk rock scenes. Every member of the band was a part of a punk rock scene or something like that. They were birthed out of, the same, not the same location, but the same like ecosystem of bands like Jimmy Eat World and Midtown, and out of that. And then, like, so if you look at the individual members of the band, Frankie Iero is like the Black Flag guy. These other guys are into like Britpop. There's some metal guys in there. So they really are a fusion of a bunch of different genres, but they started in punk scenes. And I think their music is way less emo in the way that people like to think of emo than people actually realize. Like, to me, when I think of emo, or even the mall emo that they get thought of as or categorized as, I think of stuff that's more derivative of like the shoegaze stuff and the Midwest stuff. This is more derivative of pop punk with these emo like flarings to them. So I would say its base is more like pop punk core, I would say, is the base of it. Be like, listen to this next to a lot of that other stuff that was right around it. Like I said, I think the core of it is pop punk, and then everything around it made what the My Chemical Romance sound was. Like, I don't think it's as emo, like this record in particular. I don't think it's as like emo as it got branded. Like, so on that scale, I would say, like, to me, their stuff is very similar to Green Day in that it's more like punk music combined with classic rock than it is. Yeah. Oh yeah.
This is gonna be a fun episode.
Yeah. This is punk rock with classic rock. That's exactly what all of this stuff is.
All right. Well, there's no punk rock in this, full stop. Cool. There's zero punk in this music. So just be like, okay. So I know they all come from punk rock backgrounds. And I do think there's some classic rock, but there is a couple of things that you said that I agree on. It's just these, like, I think the major points we're probably not going to see eye to eye.
Here's the thing, though. I always just don't care about that question. You know what I mean?
No.
And I'm not saying to be antagonistic. I'm just saying, like, I'm always going to kind of say yes to that question if I'm talking about it with you. Like, I don't really.
Oh, that's true.
That's what I'm saying with that question.
Well, no, I mean, the reason that the question is the reason that question exists specifically on this podcast is to get a good conversation going.
Yeah.
Again, I also don't really care if it's
but I'm thinking, like, and I'm trying to think, like, when I ever answer no to that question is kind of what I'm thinking. Okay. Like, because My Chemical Romance pushes it almost as far as you would to think of that, but I still don't quite cross that. Like, to me, like, it's still not like what, like, the Panic at the Disco and that kind of stuff is, where that's, to me, that is something completely different. Like, this may consider this something completely different, but I think this is more rooted in that.
I have a 2-prong response to that. One is that I would never ask that of a band that had 0 people saying that it is. If there was nobody on the planet that said it was punk, then I wouldn't have asked, because that's the whole point, is that we take things that are like punk adjacent and go, is this punk? Because it's just a conversation starter, right? It's just a topic. It's a attention grabbing headline to put on a YouTube.
Are people saying that about My Chemical Romance though? That's that, and I've always like.
I'm certain there are people that are saying it's punk.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I mean, they took so much shit like when they came out.
Go Google right now. Go Google punk rock albums from 2004, and I guarantee you it's in the top 5.
Sure, because like it would.
That's my point.
Yeah, but like
that doesn't mean that it is punk.
But who's doing that kind of category? Like who's doing that kind of categorization though? You know what I mean?
That's the general public, the kind of people that might watch a video like this, and like not, dude. I guarantee you that real punk rock fans, people that do the stuff that I do specifically, are going to agree with what I'm fixing to say about this album. There is absolutely zero punk rock in this album. There was maybe a handful of riffs that I could consider punk rock in this album.
But again, I don't think anyone ever claimed that they were punk rock. That's what I'm saying. Like no one with any credibility has ever claimed them to be punk rock.
I'm disagreeing. I'm saying that people do think that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Especially people from a younger generation. You can't tell me that people would listen to something like
sure, but nothing they consider punk rock, you also would. That's my point to that though too.
Yeah,
nothing they consider like so what definition are we going over though on that too? You know what I mean? Like that I don't know.
There is no definition. Okay. Just because I wouldn't agree with the people that would say this doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be talked about. It doesn't mean that it couldn't be a fun conversation. It doesn't mean that we should talk about it.
And we're having it. I'm just
But my point is that who cares about all that? Like you're asking the wrong questions. The question, that's not the question. The question is what do we think?
Mm-hmm.
Not what do those people think and do I agree with them or not? Because I don't. No, I don't agree with them. Of course I don't. People that say, but those people might be interested in hearing our perspective. They might want to argue with us in the comments. This is a conversation for everybody to take part in. You and I are just the ones that are hosting it and then putting it up on YouTube, and the people will almost certainly disagree with me in the comments, and then and we'll just go.
But what I would say about those people, and I'm not really even disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is, do you think those people who would say that this is punk rock actually care about punk rock? Like care about punk rock as something that means or matters? So that's why it's thought of as punk rock, because it's kind of like shorthand.
Nothing to do with it though. That doesn't have nothing to do with it.
No, but I've never heard of like My Chemical Romance needing to be, because they've always been sort of the outcast of the whole situation. Like I've never noted them to be like people like defending them as punk rock. Like people would defend them as a band, but I didn't know that was a thing, is what I'm saying. Like with My Chemical Romance.
I mean, I have personally heard people describe, I like punk bands, and I go, oh, what bands? And I have heard the name My Chemical Romance come out of a number of mouths. That doesn't mean that they're correct, but that means that that's what they think. I've also had people tell me that NASCAR Aloe is punk rock. Many, 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 many people have told me that. Do you know who NASCAR Aloe is?
No, that sounds...
It's absolute trash, bro. It is not punk rock. He's like this rapper kid that has spiky hair and likes some punk bands. So people go, he's punk rock. Finn McKenty will tell you that Suicide Boys are punk rock. I guarantee you he would probably consider My Chemical Romance some iteration of punk rock. That's kind of my point, is that I'm the guy that's going to gatekeep punk rock right now and be like, nah, I don't think so, bro. And then I'm going to also tell you how much I don't like Dan Frampton. So I'm over here contradicting the shit out of myself. But it's just for a fun conversation, because you and I usually agree like 80%. And I think this one might be one that's going to be a weird
I don't even think we're disagreeing. I just didn't know.
No, we're not really disagreeing.
We're kind of disagreeing on the terms of the conversation, I think is what we're disagreeing on.
Well, the conversation is simple. We just wanted to talk about a band that might get some people to look at the video, because this band... While you'd already answered my question as to why would I bring this band up, because all these dudes come from punk rock. That doesn't mean that it is a punk band, because you could have 6 dudes from punk rock history come together and form a boy band. It doesn't make it punk rock, but some people would argue that maybe it does. It's crazy.
Because like every member of the Foo Fighters comes from a like classic punk rock band, and no one would call the Foo Fighters reasonably punk rock. Obviously there's some influence, but no one would say that. I would say then the thing is, we got to go back then to our episode a couple of weeks ago to kind of tie what we're talking about. The genre is Warped Tour. If you want to do that is what people...
What got me thinking about it last week.
That's what people are referring to. If that person who says, yeah, I'm into, like,
correct.
But to me, like, it doesn't, like, if you are categorizing My Chemical Romance in your list around a bunch of other punk bands, it would stand out maybe, or like bands that would be acceptable. Like I don't know what I would have to hear next to it for it to really be like, oh, why did you include them on the list?
they would be like Green Day, My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy. That would be their punk rock. Blink 182, because people tell me that Blink 182 is punk rock. That's the wildest shit I've ever
But
heard. Because even
I
if they're
think your
most
definition
punk,
of
they
punk
weren't
rock
a
is
punk.
so limited, though. That's the thing. Your definition of punk rock is so narrow.
How?
Like, I don't know what I don't know how you define punk. Like, I genuinely I don't understand it. Like, how would you define? Like, what is it? What are those parameters if some of those bands aren't like if they are not punk bands or like? But is it like the music they put out currently? Like, I don't get. That's why I don't get it as a question.
Well,
Because
okay.
like,
Well, because
I get it if
Here's
it's
the thing.
indie versus major, like that I
Well,
get.
you're asking me to give you like a hard black line as to what is punk rock, and that doesn't exist.
Right.
But I can tell you when I hear something that is not punk rock. I can absolutely tell you that. I can also tell you when I hear something that is punk rock. Blink 182 does not qualify as punk rock. They never have. They just haven't. Green Day used to, don't any longer.
Again, I don't know what we're talking about then. If Blink-182 has never been punk rock, like I don't know what terms we're setting. What is that line then? And please show me the line if they were never a punk rock band. Like I don't buy that.
I mean, you don't have to. You're allowed to have your own opinion.
Okay, but I just don't. But then I don't know what we're defining as punk. Then that's what I'm trying to like figure out.
No, dude. Are you not under the impression that punk is a little bit different for everybody?
Sure.
I've always listen.
But then why is there a line if it's
Because what do you mean? Why is there a line? There really isn't. We're just having a conversation. We're just talking about music. We're talking about my definition versus maybe somebody else's. Maybe yours versus mine. Maybe ours versus theirs. Maybe whatever. It's just a conversation. It's just for entertainment. It isn't that serious. Is my whole point. People will get really upset in the comments when I say like The Offspring. Do you consider Smash a punk rock album? I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I got told nonstop how trash that album is, and it's not punk at all. I disagree with that, but I didn't get offended by it. I was just like, all right, whatever, like, cool. I don't care. But it is a fun time. It is fun to talk about, especially with a friend of mine. Right. So, when it's celebrating a substantial anniversary, and it is, I've always said that this channel will cover anything that is punk rock and punk rock adjacent. And if nothing else, this is punk rock adjacent, since it is coming from punk rock guys.
Yeah, nobody would disagree with that. Nobody would disagree with that.
And so that's my avenue to getting this on my channel, is that I've never claimed I wouldn't talk about an emo band or a hardcore band or a metal band if I wanted. Correct. So more or less I wanted to just give this album some attention, really, is because it's hitting a substantial date, and I do think that there's enough people that watch this channel that like this band that they would appreciate us covering it. It's more or less what I was doing. Right. Now, is it punk rock? Literally, it's just to make an argument happen. That's all I wanted to do.
Right. And I'm not questioning us talking about this album at all. Like, I think it's very appropriate.
Well, I'm saying like in general, when I say, is it punk rock? The answer is whatever you want the answer to be every single time. I don't have... Now, I will often say yes or no, hard stop, fight me about this. That's because all I want is a conversation, bro. It's not because I actually want somebody to be angry about it. People do get angry about it, and they would get angry about it no matter how I said it. So,
and for the record, I'm not angry about it.
No.
Yeah.
No, this is just, I think we're just answering a lot of questions before they get asked in the comments, probably. So,
yeah, sure.
No, the album's not punk rock. No, they're not punk rock, dude. They're trying to be rock stars, bro, and nothing wrong with that either. Here's another thing, is when you say something is or isn't something, that doesn't mean you're declaring that it is or isn't bad or lame or you do or don't like it. If I say, Green Day isn't a punk band anymore, that doesn't mean Green Day isn't a punk band anymore, and they suck now. That is not what I said. I just made an observation. I just said that, Blink-182 was never a punk rock band. I don't know how anybody could listen to them at any point in their career and go, yeah, punk rock. Like, maybe pop punk for sure. Okay. But even the last, 15, 20 years, not even that, But that's my definition of it. I would imagine some people would say that 2003 Blink-182 album is a punk rock album. Well, those people probably would never listen to this or any number of the tapes and shit that I have laying around my office, because my definition of punk might be a little different from theirs. And that doesn't mean that I'm right. It doesn't mean I'm wrong either, though. And I'm older, so I'm going to have a different definition than somebody 20 years old too, probably, I would think. So all this is really is a gateway for conversation. And even though I don't think that this album is punk at all, I do have a certain amount of appreciation for it. I do think that people will get to bands like Rancid. This is another example of like me covering a group that would fall into the same category, in my opinion, as like an MGK thing without having to talk about that guy. I'd rather talk about MCR because I have a lot of respect for what they do, and I think that they're fantastic musicians. So I do think that you can get from that band all the way to something like the U.S. Bombs. It wouldn't take that long. And so for that reason, I do have appreciation for the group. And I mean, I do sell their records. I would probably go see them live if I could afford it. They probably put on a hell of a show.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning because I was preparing for this conversation. I did see him live. I mentioned a couple weeks ago, and I saw him on a Warp Tour in 2005. And again, it was crazy. They were like the biggest band in the world. So as
That's
I said,
so wild.
all the like the middle school age, like they were all probably teenagers, but I felt like a young adult, being like 18 or like these were not these were just not my peers. You know what I mean? And I would like, not that there wasn't people my age that were seeing them too, but it was just like a bunch of like younger kids, and then they all left as soon as their set was over. Like they were on the main stage, but they weren't the headliner. And so it also speaks though to, I think, part of the power that the band had early on is they were such a chameleon in kind of what we're talking about in the way that they sound.
Right.
That
Yeah,
they toured
they
with,
in and out of things.
They toured with everyone, and it was very like no one minded having them as your opening band because they kind of fit whatever bill. If you were Thursday, you didn't mind having them as your opening band. If you came through and you were more of a skate punk band, it was not just completely out of place to have them on there. They really were that type of chameleon. So I really helped them build up their following. Kind of what we're talking about there is the eclectic mix of. That's why what you said too about the punk rock question. I said it's really hard because. Well, I think that's a core of what they do. Even the individual members are so different in what they bring to the band. They're not like, I don't know what's the word, homogeneous or something. We were all doing the same thing. They're a very, I guess, eclectic is what is the best way to sort of define the band, which makes them difficult to pin them on genres. Like they hated being called emo back in the day. They disdained that term.
Well, they can disdain it all they want, but
I think theirs is a flavor of emo, to kind of clarify.
Well, yeah, but I mean. The flavor of emo is still emo,
Right. Well, I mean, go to our punk conversation we just had a minute ago, too, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, would there be people that call them not emo band? Yeah. Would they say that? Yeah. Who knows? But the fact is that this is a very blurry line, and I'm not arrogant enough to think that I have any authority in any of these subjects. I don't. Now, will I stand on my opinion on it? Yes, I will. But I don't. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I want people to feel included to a specific degree. And something I forgot to mention is that the reason that I brought this up is because in my head, when I said My Chemical Romance, bro, I'm not joking, man. In my head, I thought, man, last time I heard this, I think I really felt like this could fit into maybe a punk rock section of my records at my store. And that's what I was thinking, right? And but I haven't heard it. I never listened to this band like that. So I haven't heard this album in forever. So I was expecting, honestly, dude, this is so crazy. I was absolutely expecting to be like, yeah, kind of. And then I listened to it twice. And I was like, what do I remember then? So I went back to their first album and listened to like half of it. And I was like, oh, I think I'll remember this album and not Three Cheers. Yeah. Because that one has a lot more in common with stuff I would consider punk or pop punk, even mostly pop punk. But yeah, I mean the album is high quality. Yeah, I don't know. I think that the fact that all of this is a blurry line makes for conversations like this, I think, to be pretty entertaining.
I think they are though specifically they're a little bit different than a lot of these other bands we can do. And part of that blurry line is like, we talked about the Ramones a couple of weeks ago. I think My Chemical Romance are their own like Ramones type of thing. Like they are sort of the Big Bang event that all this other stuff comes off of. So whatever they do defined whatever that stuff was.
Right.
Because they're a band that's a lot more that like when you talk about the discourse around them is defined by a lot of their imitators, and that becomes to define them, or their fans, because they got so big. So like part of why I said like they hated the term emo because they didn't really feel like that was what they were doing. They were thinking of it in more like literal terms, and they didn't like really being painted with that brush because they didn't even feel like that's what it was.
Well,
that they were really up to it. But then emo became whatever My Chemical Romance did. That became the definition of what
it really
was.
No, it really did.
It subsumed everything. Where old pop punk even got labeled as emo, even if it didn't really sound like it. And so that like that generation you're talking about, emo is a dirty word to people who didn't like it, but the people who are into it, emo is not really a dirty word. But they'll say stuff that you and I like that we would never consider emo. They'll just say like, oh, that sounds emo. And like they were the band that's responsible for emo becoming a synonym of alternative. I think, and people sort
Right.
of
I
like
would
getting
agree
all
with
that
that.
confused. Yeah.
They were a huge, very important band, and I think it's interesting, man. It's one of those things where when somebody goes, well, they said that they weren't emo, and I go, it doesn't matter what they say. It's just like if I painted a picture and then I gave it to you and you went, oh man, I see a butterfly in this, and then I went, oh no, that's actually a storm that I painted. They would like, no, it's a butterfly. That's what I see when I look at it. How am I going to tell them that they're wrong? I
Mm.
cannot do that because it's not wrong. It's what they see. And
Yeah.
so when I hear a band, if I want to call it, emo, if I want to call it punk, I guess I can. I mean, if somebody hears, I mean, I've been okay, dude. When I've told people that I listened to punk in the past, this has happened more than one time. I don't know how many times, but more than once, or I wouldn't have remembered it. But it blew my mind. People said, "Oh, like Slipknot." Like, bro,
Mm.
people think of punk rock as all kinds of stuff,
But
man.
but that to me though, the difference in that, because I've got that before. So someone told me they were into punk because they were into Rob Zombie, and I was like, wait, what? And it
That's
just
wild.
I think
That's
though, I think those
incredibly
people are just
offensive.
completely misinformed. Like they have no, like, to them punk is also shorthand for just alternative. You know what I mean? That
Probably.
those people I don't think are thinking too
They're like,
deeply.
oh, Rob Zombie likes the Ramones, so I like punk rock. You're like, that doesn't
I
make
don't even
sense.
think it goes to that level of thinking. I just think like they just conflate like hard rock and heavy metal even
Oh, possibly.
as punk. That's what I mean. I think that's a little bit
The
whereas the other.
'90s fucked all this up, dude.
Well,
It made everything.
and that's perfect. That is actually what I was thinking this morning about the fusion. Is when we think of fusion, we think of the late '90s, or the early '90s, the
Right.
mid. We think of all these things, even suicidal tendencies, the new metal, all this stuff. This stuff is also that. It's just like smoother. The
Right.
combinations are just blended into being
Yeah.
its own thing. Whereas like literally, it was even uncreative. We called it rap rock, right? We're just combining two things. We're not actually creating something new, which is not true because I think like bands like Slipknot and System of a Down, they had like hip hop beats sort of within their but their full metallic thing. But a band like Limp Bizkit was literally, or Crazy Town was just combining heavy metal and hip hop. I think by the time you get to the 2000s, it's just a little more artfully done with bands like My
Right.
Chemical Romance, and even nowadays, I see like genres not being what they were. They don't hold the same sort of like every band kind of does every genre. Have you noticed? Like they just kind of do
So,
different things and they go on things, and
so
it's not as protected. And so the fans aren't always as like protective. I've noticed of this or that the way we were. I just don't feel that.
I have to respond to that because you've said that to me a number of times since we've been doing the show, and I've never understood that because I don't have that experience. And then
Mm.
it occurred to me why I don't listen to bands that do that. Like I just don't. I listen to punk rock bands. Like I'm kind of a boring individual if you want to get down to like brass tacks about it, bro. Like I stay in my lane. I like what I like, and I mean, like the punk that I listen to right now, I'm listening to a lot of French. Like it gets so stupid because it's like French thug wave, post punk, dark wave. Like
Mm.
it's punk. It's a punk band,
Yeah.
but there's these other little things in it. So maybe I do. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. That is a large possibility. Okay, look, folks. Look, guys.
What a revelation.
Dude, like I'm
It's hilarious. Like, oh my god, the music starts playing. Okay, guys,
dude,
we're done. We're done.
man.
He doesn't know anything.
Well, what's crazy is that if people hear me say that and don't, if they react in any kind of way, then they just either are new to the channel or they just simply don't listen.
The
I
full
have been
context,
very
yeah.
open with the fact that I don't know, man. I'm just talking about my opinion. And if you like now, if I look something up and can give you a date and like a run time, and okay, well, those are facts. But like speaking subjectively, bro, I don't. It's fucking up to you, man. Like what you like, bro.
Mhm.
Don't be so what's the word? Like worried about what people insecure. Don't be so insecure, man.
Mhm.
Like if you like MCR, but your favorite band in the world is Hatebreed, there's nothing wrong with that, dude. Like my favorite band is Rancid, and I legitimately listen to Lady Gaga. Like, who cares, dude? Like, if you got a problem with that, good. Let me know so that I can know that you're the asshole I don't want to talk to. Like, that's cool. Good. Thank you. So, I mean, I go to a lot of eclectic things and see a lot of eclectic bands. I just went and saw Sister Wife Sex Strike. Bro, I've never been around that many transgender people in my life
I
in
think,
one space,
and
and it was
you're speaking
amazing.
to
It was
the
amazing.
underground is different. Like it even
Yeah.
it even trips me out over here. Like when I go hang out with like local bands and stuff, like they all know each other and they're all friends, but it's a completely different crowd for bands that are kind of labeled together in these different groups, and it kind of makes no sense. Like because to me, it's like
Well,
a lot of it's not that different, but in
there
the underground,
are,
it is. Like
you know that video series that people have been doing for like the last maybe year and a half, where they go, whatever, iceberg explained.
iceberg. Yeah.
So I would say that I fall somewhere way down deep. And I would say that you're probably one rung above me, but we're way below the surface, man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, so what I would consider punk, while I don't have an authority on it, has a pretty specific definition. So, you know, I even go as far as to say stuff like the Ramones are a pop punk band, Green Day is a pop punk band, Blink 182 used to do pop punk. Like, because to me, that's what that is. It's pop punk. Doesn't mean it's bad or good. It just means it is that. And people also get offended by those things. They go, oh, well, he said it was pop punk. Yeah, I didn't say it was bad. I just said that's what I thought it was. You know, and if folks just get in their feelings, because we like to protect the things that we love. And we can go down this rabbit hole for hours. But the fact remains is that what I'm really asking is this album good? Is it something that you listen to? What did you like it? Like, did you listen to it at all? I listened to it a couple of times. I got some notes on all the songs. It wouldn't take me very long to read them all because I just jotted down a couple of words. But
Yeah,
you know,
I
enjoy
actually
listening
own
to this.
I owned this album when it came out,
Oh,
like in the
nice.
in the first run. You know what I mean? And it
You know, okay, sorry.
no,
Continue.
and I would say like for me it was funny because like I had seen My Chemical Romance on the early Warp Tour. I wanted to say so like I was like aware and I knew them as the Used Friends. That's how I knew them. They were
Nice.
the Used Friends. And the reason why I got the album is I didn't really like hang with that crowd really either. But like it was literally at a Walmart, so it's like oh I kind of know them, so I bought the album and I really liked. And then okay, I was 04, 17, 18. Anytime you had a girl in your vehicle,
Oh,
they
bro.
weren't necessarily into the Casualties, but they all knew the My Chemical Romance song. So that
There
kind
is-
of grew a little bit, you know.
Well, that's another example of like the gateway to getting you from the MCR down to US Bombs is that you can have a girlfriend that likes that stuff, but then all of a sudden she's listening to Rancid with you, then all of a sudden she's listening to Dwayne Peters.
Mhm.
And that doesn't surprise me at all. And that's another reason why this stuff is really valuable. And I think that it's a good thing to have it. That line can be as blurry as people want it to be. I am not going to be offended by somebody saying that they think it's a punk album or if they think it's not. I might argue in the comments about it, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be like, what's up, dude? If I see you, like, I'm not. I think people mistake this world, like this YouTube world, as like, I don't know, man, like a thing that like, I don't know. People, it's weird, bro. This is a weird thing that we do. But
For sure.
yeah, the MCRs is an interesting group, but like you said something earlier. You've mentioned the Used and Thursday in this conversation, and
Mhm.
those are the kind of bands that I've never really listened to, but they've
Mhm.
always been like I've had friends that liked all of those bands to some degree. Now they
Yeah.
didn't necessarily like all of them together, but like I had a friend that liked Thursday a lot. I had a friend that liked MCR. I had a friend that liked The Used a lot. I had a friend that liked Fall Out Boy a lot. Newfound Glory was the one that I started to like. That
Mhm.
wasn't really considered a punk band. That I was
Mhm.
still like, yeah, but they rule, man. The band's good, dude. So I think this is all just semantics, and we're all just voicing our opinions, and then we argue about it, and it's because we love it, man. We spend our time doing this because we love doing it. We love talking about it. MCR has my respect, but whether it sounds like they do or not is honestly I don't really care because
You know, here's the thing. I'm gonna throw a hot take. Let me make
Let's
an ass of
go.
myself. I wish they never
Ooh.
existed.
oh shit,
Yeah.
okay, how come?
So I love all their music.
That
Like
was awesome.
no,
What?
this is true. Yeah, I love Black Parade. Great album. The song is great. This album, I had more than one or two sessions in my Ford, Ranger because of this album. First album was cool. They seem like cool guys. I got friends now that I connect with that are younger than me because they like this band. But I wish they never existed because if they never existed, like everything in my life wouldn't have sucked from like 2005 on because it's exactly kind of what you're talking about because this became the definition of the stuff I was into. And again, while I liked them, I didn't like everything else. And I'm exactly speaking to what you're talking about.
Welcome to Gatekeeper.
Yeah. So like, again, because I was realizing like I really like this stuff, and I was looking at the song list. I like it, but if like I can go back in time, you know what I mean? If I could smother the creation of this album, like it didn't feed off it didn't create anything I actually liked after the fact. Just selfishly based on my age, everything good had already come out. Nothing else needed to be inspired, and even if it did, even like Teenage Bottle Rocket, who was younger, they already had no effects. They didn't need My Chemical Romance, and there's nothing that My Chemical Romance made that could have ever inspired anything I liked. That's my selfish reason. I wish they never existed, but I absolutely love them.
Speaking of, okay, so I was trying to pause there so I didn't lose my thought, but I kept it. So, okay, people always ask me, why would you gatekeep something? Why would you talk like that? Why do you care? That right there is exactly why. What he said is exactly why. Because when we were younger, we liked XYZ. And somewhere along the line, a band like MCR or Green Day, or as far back as you want to go, man, somebody would say NoFX did this to their, UK 82 stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere along the line, a band came out that was so big that it got the general audience into some of the top layer of the stuff that I liked. So that stuff started getting lumped in with everything that I loved. And we've put in years of our lives and thousands of our dollars and all of this time and energy and blood, sweat, and tears, whatever you want to call it. And so, yeah, it's a little frustrating whenever the one thing you're like, okay, I could dig that, but everything, like Fall Out Boy, I don't like Fall Out Boy.
The stuff that isn't as good as this is it wasn't worth the squeeze.
And so you have a bunch of kids that don't actually care, don't actually go to the shows. Like, okay, I'm not gonna say names because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I know a couple of people that they wear the shirts, they have the clothing looks good on them. They got the hair, they got the tattoos, they went and bought a bunch of patches and patched up their jackets and their pants, and yeah. And these people have told me that they go to shows a lot, and I'm like, that's awesome, man. And they were like, we really want to go hang out with you. And I was like, dude, I would love to hang out, man. And so I've invited these people to no less than 8 shows in the last year that were like, I knew that they would like the band. I knew that it was affordable. And we could all go hang out together, right? They've never shown up, right? And this is the same people that will be like, yeah, I love punk rock. And then you tell them like, oh, what's your favorite punk band? And they come with the ones like they like the Circle Jerks, and they like Bad Religion, and and it's all surface layer stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that type of stuff is creates the environment that calling Fall Out Boy would grow in, calling that band punk would grow in. So like that kind of person that doesn't actually go to the shows, they don't actually go and read the liner notes. They only buy their records from either a big outlet, maybe it's a Hot Topic or something, but it is like a big major chain type place. They don't find the little like all my people at work that work at Alamo that come up and hang out with me at my store. Shout out to all of them because they come in and they buy records from me, so they get to see bands like these tapes that I was just showing you guys, man. Like all this stuff, they get to see this stuff, and I get to throw it everywhere.
No, they don't. If you drop it,
dude,
they don't
I
get
just
to see it.
Put it right in my hands. It was like, no, don't involve me. That was weird, bro. It like jumped out of my hands. But so like they get to see this stuff, so they get to hear about it, man. And like, but there's this group of people that like if you just looked at them and you walked by them, you'd go, oh, they probably like punk rock. But as soon as you start talking to them, you're like, no, dude, they like the aesthetic, and they like a couple of punk bands, but they're normie dudes with dyed hair with a mohawk. They're for lack of a better word, they're fashion punks, dude. Like that's okay. Look, again, I am not saying it's good or bad. I am just making an observation. You do whatever you want to do. I don't care. Yeah. But that's what these conversations are for, is the people that go below the surface and go, man, we hang out down here in the muck. I sift through all this bullshit. It's like dudes that go out and sift through all that dirt and rock to get that little piece of gold. That's what we do. I sift through dozens of tapes every week to find the one band that I'm going to like. And then I go to their Bandcamp and I buy. Dude, this is the people that don't shop on Bandcamp, okay? They don't do that. They only listen to stuff on Spotify. They don't own a record player. That kind of people. That's cool, man.
And see, and for me, what the problem is too is like, and this happens with every form, everything.
I'm so
in culture.
angry.
I just said that the thing we're talking about I wish didn't exist, and then I said, and I really like the album, so I mean we're all over the place. But
Oh yeah,
uh,
no, this is
and
fun.
what it is though too is because like okay, nobody's gonna like everything. So anything that gets really big will also have a lot of hate to it generally. So,
Yes.
and that's really what it is. It's like if this got so big that if you didn't like this, you thought you didn't like punk, or you thought old punk was
Right.
exactly like this. And again,
It's insecurities, man.
that's not really a criticism on My Chemical Romance. It's just like, oh, because you don't like that, that means you assume all of this is this, or all of this is exactly this very specific thing. Because I think My Chemical Romance, while they ended up appealing to a huge audience because they got so big, their whole thing was a very niche audience, a very niche style of kid that they were kind of
Right.
appealing to. Like they were niche, but they got so big that they're kind of a combination of niche and
Well,
mass. So you get the hate, you get that sort of hatred. So again, so I remember I was hearing an interview with some band, and like they wanted to make sure they didn't sound like My Chemical Romance because so many people hated but My Chemical Romance is not like a Limp Bizkit type band that they're like overwhelmingly hated. You know what I mean?
right,
Just
like
enough
Nickelback.
people do. Yeah, but enough people do. Just like anything that is that big,
Right.
that you don't want to. That's other people now not wanting to have that label on them because they don't want it to be exactly like that in case you have it feel some kind of way about this thing. So yeah, I'm okay with right before the first album's about to come out, I'm gonna go to the pressing plant in my time machine. I'm gonna smash all the records, and it's never gonna happen. And like Green Day can have American Idiot, and all those people that still got into like emo and pop punk, they can still just do that off of American Idiot. Billy Joe,
Well,
he's gonna sell more records, more
dude,
red ties. The old aesthetic will be the same. We'll just do that in my retold version of history.
my MCR will be Green Day American Idiot, sir. I will be going back in time to destroy that. I hate
No,
that
no.
record. You know,
Okay, well
I
then,
don't like that record.
well then, if that's the case, then
Well,
we
this
will
is-
fight
this
on
is-
this battlefield.
Right. Well, then people are going to go back and destroy Rancid, and I'm going to cry. But this is where our age difference shows a little bit because we don't really have that big of an age gap, especially the older we get.
Mm.
But when we're talking about like our prime, it is a little different. It's a slight.
Yeah, and this is literally mine. Like this
Right,
would be
right.
mine. And so it's funny because like but it's not, because like when it really was a generation slightly younger, but my generation I feel
Yeah.
like built it because we were kind of like what
You're
that,
like the middle of it though. You're like
Yeah,
the middle
because-
of mine in this. Like that's
right.
where
So
you guys hang
my
out.
generation is more accurately, I think, the pop punk generation, like the last years when we were
I would
like
say that.
early to that would have been the time when I would have been in high school. I'm at the end
Right.
of my high school. Again, I remember literally senior year. This was like the CD that everyone had at the parties and stuff like that. Like that is how I associate this of that sort of time. But their demographic was more like the middle school kids at that time. So the demographic then would have been like, think about it in 1999. Probably a high school senior probably has Enema of the State and thinks it's cool, but that's more marketed to people my age who are like in middle school at the time. Like
Right.
it's more actually that's really the audience that it finds. Is kind of what I'm trying to say, but that it does make a difference in the perspective. So that's why like I've never really dismissed the music of My Chemical Romance, because like I got to hear a lot of it in very like real time. So like it's kind of like people like from the 80s that aren't really into maybe like new wave or whatever, but like they like the Cars, they like a lot of that 80s stuff, and it is almost a non-punk thing. It's more of like it was more of the pop music of your time, and so you heard a lot of it. And when I had to, if I'm gonna be hanging in mixed company and it's between this or Fall Out Boy and Paramore, I am going for the My Chemical Romance. I got to say every time over that stuff.
That's a great example of what I'm talking about, man. If you look up punk bands, fucking Paramore gets brought up. Like, I can't think of a band that is less punk rock than Paramore. Well, yeah, I can. Nickelback. But, you know,
but there's no pretense of punk with Nickelback.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, it's all good. We've established our opinions on all this. Let me go over these songs real quick, and then we'll move on to NoFX, because I think that's what. It's crazy that we're doing 45 minutes on MCR though, without really getting boring at all. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of amazing, and that it's not actually a punk band at all. Like, I don't think that they would consider themselves punk either. I would think that they're like a rock and roll band at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that was their ultimate aspiration. Again, but produced out of punk. Like they came out of punk, and they really cared about being like an underground band. Like, so when they signed, they sort of sent off a then they were because everyone that signs, you go through the thing where everyone hates you for that little period. But like they made a point like, oh, but we're playing every bar, every venue, every club. They wanted to build themselves as a punk. Like they wanted to go kind of through that and get that kind of scar tissue. And they didn't really need to as much. They didn't really have to pay as many dues as they really did. Eventually, it became unsustainable. Like at one point, they were touring with Senses Fail, and
Who,
they were and
MCR?
yeah, and
Okay.
MCR was the opening band, and Senses
Okay.
Fail, like it was so dejecting for them because they had like a big time record that was doing well, and the venue would be so full, and then everyone would leave. Like they got the monetary benefit off it, but like they were touring like in punk tours when it became too big even for them to do it, and they hung on to that a little bit longer until really after the fact. I would say once they hit the turning point of big, and then they just kind of like became like a huge rock band. Like I really started to think of them really as a huge rock band, and then they pieced out too. They pieced out relatively
Well,
early, so that kind of helped keep that like mythology of them and even the return to be so big.
look, when they did the Black Parade, they were being compared to Queen. I mean,
Yeah.
that's wild, bro. That's
Mhm.
wild. So, okay, I want to go through this real quick. I want to just read this basically. If you want to stop me, just be like,
Sure.
"Sir, I need to talk," and then we'll move on to the next
Okay.
subject of the podcast. So, 3 cheers for Sweet Revenge. I don't remember. Did I pull up how many songs is on this?
There's 13.
Is it 13 songs? How long
Yeah.
is the album? Do you know?
39, 36.
So 30, about 40 minutes, 13 songs. That's actually a pretty good length of
Mhm.
average song length. So we've got Helena. I put the first song I remember hearing by the band. I used to hate this song. It's okay though. Definitely memorable, but not at all punk rock. And then I put, I wonder what I was thinking here. And then I put, I used to think it was 30 Seconds to Mars when I first heard it, and I hate that band. I absolutely
Mhm.
hate that band.
I'm
It's
with
another
you on
band that
that.
people.
I co-sign it. I hate 30 Seconds to Mars.
Yeah, dude. And then we got Give 'em Hell Kid, much better song, heavier but
Mhm.
still melodic. It's obvious the guys in the band like some punk, but this song is more of a hard rock song in my opinion. And so like I'm definitely mirroring what you're saying in my notes. So and then we go to the next song, To the End, some serious Fall Out Boy vibes, super catchy,
Mhm.
decent enough song. The album is objectively good. I even kind of like some of it. It's just not for me, I don't think. The lead guitar work on this one is really good. It's a plus. And then you put, you know what they do. What is that song called? You
You
know
know
what
what
they
they do to
do.
guys like us in prison?
That's right. Reminds me of the drama students' super theatric. Again, I recognize how good it is. I just don't care for it. There's like parts of it I like, but not really whole songs. I feel like it'd be a good live energy. I'm sorry. I feel like it'd be very good live, real high energy. Excuse
Mhm.
me. And
Yeah, and
again,
it's
I think this is
it's
a band that you would want to see live. You
and a
know.
lot of these. So there's two main themes on this album. There is the death of his.
Eyeliner and black hair.
Yes, there is the. So I should say MCR. The whole thing, the little bit of the origin story, real quick, is part of it is Gerard Way, their lead singer. He's actually a cartoonist. That was like what he
Oh
was kind
yeah,
of
no,
doing
he's
by trade.
so
And
yeah.
he
That's
had like
another
a
conversation.
yeah, he had a Cartoon Network show
He's awesome.
in development, and it was actually 9/11 that inspired him and his brother to start the band. If he
Oh
just felt
wow,
he felt like the cartoon thing, like what difference are you going to make? What passion are you going to have? It was just like very emotional time. So him and
that's
his brother,
crazy.
that was really like what got them going. And then their grandmother passed away while they were recording this album. So that's what the song Helena
Oh
is
man,
about. So half the songs are really, they said, it's kind of a concept album of like a tribute to their grandmother, and then the rest of it is sort of like old Western fight where these two
mm,
lovers kill each other in the passion. And a lot of these songs, that's what you got to be thinking, have that sort of like old gunfighter kind of feel to them, that theme that's sort of
nice.
woven. So those are the two things, the death of the grandmother, and then this like, this story of these two lovers that end up kind of killing each other is sort of how it, the stories that are woven in throughout the album.
I just remembered why I started listening to this band later in life, and I'm so glad that you said that because you triggered a memory on me. When I owned my comic book shop, I was reading Doom Patrol, which is what he created,
Mm,
Gerard Way. It's a DC comic, I think, but they did a TV show for it and everything, and
mm,
that is what got me to go buy their records because I was reading it and I was like, man, this is really good. And I wasn't paying attention who was writing it. And somebody goes, oh, I love that, man. I'm a huge MCR fan. And I was like, what the hell does that have to do with this comic book? And then it just kind of clicked. Oh, wait, Gerard Way, like the guy that's in that band. I was like, oh my goodness, is that the same guy? I looked it up. Sure enough, it was. So I was trying to figure out what made me think of them like, 6, 7, 8
yeah.
years ago. That's what it was that comic book. Uh, the next song on the album is I'm Not Okay. That was a pretty big song, man. And I put
Mm,
this one I like. This is one that I like. I don't even know why, to be honest. The chorus is very pop punk influenced. I don't love it, but it's solid. I see how this band appeals to a larger audience than, say, something like Rancid or even Newfound Glory. I think that's very obvious why this band would appeal to more people, but that you can have a funnel and trickle down effect and you get to US bombs.
Yeah, and then
I'll stand behind that analogy every time.
The US bombs, that's the funny end
No,
point.
just that there's a trickle down effect from all this stuff, dude.
There is for sure. And
people told me in my street punk video that there's no way you can get from Green Day to street punk. I was like, what are you talking about, dude? In 3 steps you can.
Yeah, that one's not even that hard.
Thank you.
You're
Green
not
Day,
even,
Rancid, boom, there.
You're not even twisting yourself. Yeah, I'm Not Okay was huge. That was like the biggest song like in the world, right? Until like for me, and maybe because I only really listened to rock music, so it was like that was the biggest song in the world. And then Fall Out Boy had the Sugar We're Going Down, and that kind of took that over. And those were basically like the biggest pop hits to the point that like moms are picking up their kids from school, and that's like the song on the radio on
that's the stuff that made
station.
Punk rock culture have a second boom, because like you said, these guys are from that world, and so just because their music isn't, they are, and so other people from that world will start getting a little bit of rub, and it's a weird thing, man. It's a weird thing. I mean, genre is weird in itself, really, if you want to think about it. These lines, the stipulations that we give ourselves, it's kind of strange.
I always say they're more based on geography most of the time. If you really think about it, they tend to be more than they do sound. Like, yeah, and there's similarities in sound, but when you start breaking some of these bands, like, they just they almost sound like their areas sometimes, and I find that. Well,
Texas has its own rap, it's got its own punk, and it's got its own hardcore sound. We've got a lot of different stuff because we're so big. Yeah, it just kind of naturally, happens. The next song was "The Ghost of You." I put "Nope." Sounds like a shitty Incubus song. Straight up.
That was a huge song back in the day, too.
Was it really?
That one was huge. It's got a video where they're all like in like Pearl Harbor and stuff. It's actually a kind of cool video.
Dude, my notes make me smile sometimes. It just says literally, "Nope." Sounds like a shitty Incubus song. A straight skipola. That is fun. The Jet Set Life is Gonna Kill You. Interesting intro. I kind of like this one. Yeah, this one's pretty good. It's got a great melody in the chorus. I liked it a lot. And then I put, I hate interludes.
You do.
And then I really do. I hate interludes. I hate intros and outros. I'm not into that stuff. But most people would disagree with that. The next song, "Thank You for the Venom." Avengedical Romance, pretty fun song. This band just feels like they're doing too much. LOL. I need more simplistic, straightforward punk rock for my ears.
And I like "Thank You for Your." That's probably my favorite song on the album. If I would have to.
Oh, nice. Yeah. "Hang 'Em High." I put "Good movie." Song, not so much. Second skip on the album for me.
Also has that Western vibe to that song throughout.
Yeah. It's not a fashion statement. It's a death wish. It's these names, bro. Decent enough song, I guess. I hear a little bit of what my homie was doing in Phantom Pains in the vocals of this one. More yelling, but a lot of similarities. Otherwise, this band has had more in common with hardcore via screamo than anything punk rock, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's where I was going with all that, is that in my opinion, this band is more of a screamo emo band, which is an offshoot of hardcore, than like a pop punk band. Yeah, well, but they do kind of toe the line.
They were
right. Yeah,
they were of that.
Yeah, and shout out to Phantom Pains, Daryl being like the first like tough guy that was willing to put on eyeliner and look pretty and beat the shit out of people. That guy he wore skinny jeans and tight t-shirts when it was not cool. And that guy would kick your ass, especially if you use gay slurs. He was not about that life, bro. He had a lot of gay friends and was not feeling that. He was like a hairdresser. He was awesome, bro. And he was dude, I was so jealous of that guy. He had every hot scene girl was like all about that guy.
All those things you just said also apply to My Chemical Romances. They were the band that brought in the like the LGBT people into punk rock. And,
for sure.
And women and again your girlfriend and I remember them like. They were the band that would stop the show whenever they would see someone harassing a girl. Like they were more than like that. They kind of got branded as like that white knight style, but they really
they
weren't
were woke.
Like
they
that.
were like woke when it wasn't cool yet.
They were just and that was just part of like their wanting to be straight, be like straight edge and be punk rock. That was kind of how they again kind of from hardcore scenes and that kind of thing. You see that straight line, but they translated it onto this like big scale where it's like the first time I had heard about them in years. I was in college and I was like 10 years older than everyone. And there was a young girl. We had to do a presentation on our favorite pieces of art, and hers was on My Chemical Romance. And I had no idea that they were big into the Tumblr community and the deviant art.
Oh, wow.
And all of that. They were just, and because I do remember I had my little sister-in-law. She would get onto the Tumblr with the fanfic about these guys and all.
Oh, that's crazy.
Like they were really big and like they were like kind of the girls who like that Twilight and that kind of stuff. They kind of fit with that whole sort of scene too, and that again way younger than us. That's if we were liking that stuff in that time period, they'd have put us on a list or something.
Right. For sure, though, dude. We only got 2 songs left on the
Mm.
album. It was Cemetery Drive. I put, oh, nah, man. This one starts off really bad. Like, wow. Yeah, this song is terrible. Just awful. Oh, man. Sorry, anybody who loves that song. I just heard it
I,
and was
I
turned
I
off
really
immediately.
like that song.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, I like
I'll
the
give it
intro
another.
specifically.
I'll give it.
like
I'll give it another
like
listen then,
if I
man.
put a note on it, I love the little drum intro. It's
Oh man, dude. Hey, sometimes we just don't like the same stuff.
oh.
Last song was "Never Told You What I Do for a Living," and I put, okay, they're really dropping the ball on the B side of this album. The chorus is super catchy though, sounds like Buck Cherry almost, LOL. But this one is also really bad. Not sure what people would see in this album if I'm honest. Songs are too long as well. And then I put, okay, I'm officially MCR fatigued. And then I put, oh, that's the end. Oh shit, thank goodness. So, and then I put at the very bottom, I put, why is this band associated with punk rock even a little bit? And I think we talked about that plenty. We don't need to go back into that. But I think at the end of the day, I would say that MCR is not punk rock. They're not even a little bit punk rock. That album is not punk rock, and that's perfectly fine. But I would say objectively, the album is incredibly well made. Very, very good performances, just not my particular flavor. So take that how you want. I think objectively, it's a very high grade. Personally, I think it's probably somewhere in like the 6.5, 7 out of 10 for me. Maybe even, yeah, probably 6.5. Nothing. I don't want to be like, oh, it's a 2 out of 10. That's not true. But it's like
Yeah.
if it came on in a car somewhere and I was with people I didn't know, I wouldn't turn it off, but I wouldn't choose to listen to it either. It's one of those kind of records.
See, and I'm thinking about it now. I'm regretting my statement about them not wanting to exist because I've had so many other good
Oh,
like talking about these songs. Like, but I also, I kind of made my bones on this music,
no,
or
you were
even
just hot, hot under the collar, bro. You were having a passionate moment. You're allowed to
but
have those.
but I'm balanced. Like, were those good times worth like what it brought? I don't know. It's an existential question I'm facing now. Now I'm
Right.
conflicted.
Well, we did a full hour on My Chemical
Wow.
Romance, so let's just stop. related, and we'll talk about it next week. And so, folks, sorry for the lack of awareness for what's coming up next week, but it'll be fun nonetheless.
Gotta tune in.
Yep, got to tune in, man. All right, Rob, anything else you got to say before we go?
No, I'm good.
All right, brother. Good talking with you, man. Yeah, if you need something, let me know, bro. Everybody else, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that jazz, dude. We're rocking and rolling. We're heading towards 5K, and I couldn't be happier. So thank you so much for your support. Love you guys. Have a great day, everybody. Peace.